already sent through the WhatsApp group. Fourth, to minimize any kind of disruption during the ongoing webinar, please stay unmute until the MC and the moderator allow you to speak. And last but not least, please participate until the end of the webinar because we will send a link later to check your attendance for certificate purposes. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The Honorable Secretary General of Asian African Youth Government, Dr. Muhammad Mohiuddin Mahi, the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Economics and Management at Institut Pertanian Bogor, Professor Dr. Nunung Nuriyartono, the Honorable Macro and Financial Economist at the Institute of Economic and Social Research Faculty of Economic and Business University of Indonesia, Mr. Tuku Rifki, the Honorable Member of People's Representative Council of the Republic of Indonesia, Mr. Muhammad Rifkini Zamsi Kasayuda, the Honorable Moderator, Mr. Muhammad Amri Mustafa from University of Indonesia, and also to all participants who have attended today's webinar. Distinguished delegates and participants of the meeting, we would like to welcome you to the AAYG International Webinar with the topic Policy Responses for the Global Food Crisis, Recession, and Everything in Between. On behalf of Asian African Youth Government, we would like to express our gratitude to all of the participants who have joined today's webinar, and it is also such an honor for me to be able to guide today's event. Therefore, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Levina Kija, and today I will become the Master of Ceremony for this event. Furthermore, I would like to remind you that this event is also being live streamed on our Instagram at asian.african.yg and our YouTube Asian African Youth Government. The outlook for the global economy has darkened significantly in recent months, and the world faces an increasing risk of recession in the next 12 months. The commodity price shock from the war in Ukraine had exacerbated the cost of living crisis for hundreds of millions of people, and it was only getting worse. On the other hand, record high food prices have triggered a global crisis that will drive millions more into extreme poverty, magnifying hunger and malnutrition. The war in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions, and the continued economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic are reversing years of development gains and pushing food prices to all-time highs. Based on those facts, the Asian African Youth Government will conduct a webinar to discuss these two critical issues. But before we discuss about that, I would like to invite the Secretary General of Asian African Youth Government, Dr. Muhammad Mohiuddin Mahi, to give the welcoming speech on this webinar. Dr. Muhammad, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Master Ceremony, Sister Levina, right? So I feel everyone is very serious, but I would love to have an interactive session, with the speakers and participants. So I feel everybody is very serious now. Just joining a seminar like a conference. So never mind. Distinguished guests, honorable speakers, and participants, our organizers, especially members of the Asian African Youth Government. First of all, I would like to thank you very much for joining this auspicious international webinar. And I thank organizing committee for arranging this a very important international webinar on policy responses to the global food crisis. In fact, this is very important topic and a contemporary topic. So on behalf of Asian African Youth Government, our president, executive members, we would like to thank all the participants and speakers and moderators, master ceremony, and all those joined this session. Thank you very much, and we are very much honored to have you in this session. So AAYG especially focuses on nurturing youth and future leaders. As we say, the youths are future leaders, but now we can say that youths are today's leaders. because in many fields and aspects, we can see at the global stage the youths are the leaders, and the youths are running many fields, many specializations, many facts, and many institutions, even in many societies, we can say. So the youths are very important for the societal development, for the global development. So AAYG, especially our platform, is a global platform. It's not only based in Africa and Asia. Now we can say that we do have members from over 60 countries all over the world. So this is very important to know that AAYG has become a global platform for youths. So what we try to do, we try to send message to the youths to prepare themselves to be leaders for tomorrow. I mean, to lead the nations, to lead the societies, and to lead other all aspects of the development of the global stage. So and now you can see that the vision and mission of the AAYG also reflected in all aspects of leadership, creative thinking, and problem solving of the issues, and also how to counter crisis, natural disasters, and how to respond to this global crisis, such as food crises and other flood crises and economic crisis, all types of crises and disasters. So this is AOIG is very much concerned to prepare the youths and to make them active and proactive, to nurture themselves, for the preparation of, responding this crisis and disaster. I mean, at the level of youth, I'm not talking about the leaders of the country, politicians, and others who are the policy makers, but there is a huge responsibility of youth and young generation to respond to crises and these disasters. And also, we are trying to train the youths in aspects of diplomacy, in aspects of well communication, and how to create networks, and how to strengthen the networks within the young generation, within the international and global platforms for youth. So this is just to prepare them for the future. And another point I would like to highlight, that to this program, international, this webinar, on policy responses to the food crisis. This is why AAYG has chosen for this international webinar. As we know, due to pandemic, and now it is the global, we can say the international, internationally, we are affected by the pandemic, and almost all the countries have types of, or a kind of crisis, either financially or economically or socially or maybe systematically. So there are crises, and we can say also there are many other natural disasters happen in India, in, you can say, in Bangladesh, in other countries, in China. So these disasters and crises, we need to know how to overcome these disasters and crises. So this 2 days international webinar to gather ideas, creative ideas, innovative strategies, and effective solutions and responses to this global food crisis. In fact, I'm just trying to give you some messages. If we look back at 1996, the Global Food Forum, they endorsed the framework and a strategy of the food crisis, how to overcome this food crisis, on how to ensure food security and nutritious food, and healthy food, and nutritious food, healthy foods, how to ensure food security. This was endorsed by, of course, in World Food Forum in 1996, but it was formulated by the ASEAN and United Nations. So if we are in the region of ASEAN, these 10 countries, ASEAN countries, and we need to know that there is an international integrative formulation or formulative strategy formulated by the ASEAN, and also they have also strategic plan, action plan. This is what they are following in this time, since 2020 till 2025. So this strategic action plan, we need to think about it, we need to know, and how to implement, how to take our part of role in our stage, in the stage of youth, because we know that we are youth and we need to know our limitation, we need to know our fields of cooperation, fields of playing the role. So in my speech, in the last part of my speech, I would like to highlight a few points. Maybe, of course, we will listen to our speakers and also other members. We need to have some strategic and innovative policies and responses to this global crisis, food crisis. So within this region and other at the global stage, what we can do, we can firstly exchange our ideas. This is very important, to exchange ideas within the youth. Maybe some youths from India, they have different ideas to response to this global crisis, food crisis. Maybe in Malaysia, they have different ideas. So what we can do, we can gather all these ideas and we can exchange our knowledge and information. So there are many information, maybe different information in different countries. So we have to have this information. Otherwise, you cannot, reach to our, solutions, to the decision. So this is number two. And number three is we need to collaborate. We need to have collaboration within this states, within the maybe this region, and also within with other countries as well. Because ASEAN countries especially are the major countries to produce food items and to export these food items to other countries. So this is very important, and the youths can have some entrepreneurial project. We can have some entrepreneurial projects to have long-term and mid-term planning, and to respond to any kind of global food crisis in future. And number four, what I can say that in any country and in any region, we can see there are some syndicates, who control the food and the price of food. So you will see that the farmers who actually plant, who actually produce these food items, the farmers, they are the key players for the development in any country. We are depend on the farmers, their plantation, their corporation, and their production. So what we know that these syndicates are very dangerous. So the youths can demonstrate by writing articles, or by sending message to the society or the business company, business association, or to the government, because we need to break and we need to destroy this kind of syndicates. These syndicates are very dangerous. Okay, and lastly, what I'm saying that the farmers should be given proper rights. Sometimes we think that farmers are the low categories of people. This is very wrong, because the farmers are as I said, the key players of the national development or the global development. So what we do, we look at them with the lower stage, lower level, and we think that they're very low-minded people, they are low-class people. So we need to change our mindset. We need to change our perception to the farmers. So this is very important. And governments and other civil societies, organizations must give them proper rights, their rights, principal rights, and their rights of production. Sometimes we don't give them proper prices. So the syndicate purchase items from them, and they give them a lump sum price, just liter price, and they control the prices in the whole market, in the markets of the country, in market of the region. So these are some just important points I just share with you, as I think that these are very important. So my brothers and sisters, my friends, fellows, as youth, we have no way to think that we are not responsible to have ideas and innovative responses to this crisis. We should have our own responsibilities. We should contribute to our nation, our societies, communities, to the global stage. So that's why let's think much, let's evaluate the situations, and let's gather information. Let's exchange our ideas and creative thoughts, and then let's discuss, brainstorm, and come up with the solutions how to respond to this global food crisis. So I would like to thank all the members, participants, speakers, organizers for arranging this wonderful international webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad, for the wonderful welcoming speech. Next, we are going to enter our main event, which will be presented by Professor Dr. Nunung Nuriatono, Mr. Tuku Rifki, and Mr. Muhammad Rifki Nizamzi Karsayuda. This event will be guided by Mr. Muhammad Amri Mustafa, who is currently doing an internship in AAYG. He is an undergraduate student at Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Indonesia. He has an interest in international economic studies, political and world history. He is also an active writer who has published several articles in Badan Otonom Ekonomika, which is a press organization at Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Indonesia. Without further ado, I am giving the floor to you, Mr. Amri.
Thank you so much to a friend of mine, Levina Kezia. No, I'm taking the floor. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon to you all. The Secretary General of Asia Africa Youth Government, Honorable Speaker, and distinguished participant. I'm Muhammad Mustafa. It's been a great honor for me taking this role as a moderator of this great international webinar with the ground theme of policy responses for global food crisis, recession, and everything in between. Then I'm going to introduce our honorable speakers. First, we've got Professor Dr. Nunung Nuriatono. He's a Dean of Faculty of Economics and Management, IPB University. Besides, he is also a professor in development economics, received his PhD degree from George University of Göttingen in 2005. Bachelor's degree in 1992 and master degree in 1997 from IPB University. Meanwhile, of campus roles, Professor Nunung also involved as a member of the National Research Council of the Republic of Indonesia and the secretary to the chairman of the Presidential Advisory Council. Secondly, we've got Mr. Tuku Rifki. Mr. Tuku Rifki received his bachelor's degree in 2019 from University of Indonesia, majoring in economics, and master degree from University of Warwick in 2018, focusing on international financial economics. Currently, he is a macro and financial economist at the Institute of Economic and Social Research, the Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Indonesia. He has worked for various institutions as an independent consultant, including UNDP, ADB, World Bank, Indonesian Fiscal Policy Agency, to Korean Institute for Economic Policy. He is also a teaching assistant at the Department of Economics, University of Indonesia. Lastly here, we've got His Excellency Muhammad Rifki Nizami Karsayuda, received his master's degree from University Kebangsaan Malaysia and received bachelor's degree from Indonesian Islamic University in 2001. Currently, he is a member of House of Representatives Republic Indonesia for 2019 until 2024 term. He is given the mandate to serve in Commission 2, in which charge of government, domestic politics, land, special planning, civil services, and elections. Previously, he has been entrusted with being a member of Commission 5 in charge of infrastructure, transportation, villages, transmigration, and disadvantaged regions. In the professional world, in the field of law, Rifki Karsayuda has been trusted as expert staff for legal and regional autonomy at the Indonesian Regional Representative Council and regional government expert in several regions in Indonesia. So I'm going back to our first speaker, Professor Nunung. Professor Nunung?
Yeah.
How are you, Prof?
Yeah.
Nice meeting you, Prof. Okay, Prof. So as we have known that happening in the current world situations, we are facing the threat of a global food crisis and the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, in which possess bunch of primary commodities, namely wheat, might making the crisis becoming true in the near future. So, Professor Nunung, could you explain more and what should we do now about this food crisis? Should we worry about it? And what can we do for tackling or at least minimizing this effect of global crisis? So, Professor Nunung, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you very much, our moderator, Muhammad Amri Mustafa, dear all participants, and also the Honorable Secretary General of AYG, Dr. Muhammad Mahyuddin Mahi. Thank you very much for inviting me to share the idea and thought related to how policy response should immediately tackle the global crisis, particularly this is like from one event to another event after the pandemic, then there is another global shock. And I believe this today webinar is very important for us to discussing as well as how to overcome the practical solution among the youth. Before I start my presentation, actually youth is not related to the number of age, but this related to how we think. As long as we think how to solve the problem, the future, we are categorized as youth. But someone who always looking back, it categorized the older. So I would like to share. Can I share? Because
sure, Prof.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, good. Yeah, sure. Actually, can you see my screen, Mas Amri?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
I'll see clearly.
Okay, good. Yeah, my title is Global Shock and Country Resilience. Please look this slide. I try to map from 1990 up to 2022. There are some global shock, I would say. In 1998, we know that was a ASEAN crisis from Thailand, then come to Indonesia. The food index or food price index not really jump, but we can see just only oil price index in this particular year above other price of commodity index. Then when we moved to 2008, that it was a global financial crisis, almost all commodity price index increase, meat price index, dairy price index, cereal price index, oil price index, sugar price index, as well as food price index. And then it is a new since to 2020, when pandemic hit all over the world, we can see that the food price commodity jump above around 30 years, the commodity price index. And then in the beginning of 2022, starting from March, we see that the food price commodity index increased drastically, including oil price, and then the second cereal price index, and then the green one is dairy price index. All almost commodity price index increase. It is, of course, not just only we see that the global commodity price index increase, but it will have a big impact and influence on different development indicator in its country. Looking back again from 2000 and 2020, I tried to map a different data from different countries, Indonesia, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and China. We see during the pandemic, the share of agriculture sectors increase. Before tend to decrease, but then in some countries, agriculture sector increase. As what pointed out by the Secretary, that one of key important sector as an important pillar for nation development is agriculture. So the contribution agriculture during the pandemic increased. Last year, there was a big event in UN, what we call it Food System Summit. And I was as the national curator of Indonesia, and I'm a part of the delegation of Indonesia attend and preparing the food system transformation pathway. Every country has a commitment, has a document how to transform food system in their own country, facing different globals, facing some aspect that treat the country resilient. Okay, then we see here another map and data. If we look current situation, current global situation, conflict, COVID, and climate, what we call it 3C, and food crisis. Those are 3C is related closely with food crisis. Global climate change hit also many countries, that the effect is on the productivity and production of different commodities in its countries. It is also that one, we have to be aware that climate change are here. Around 134 million people across 53 countries experience a food crisis or worse. So we can see the map here. And mostly in some area of ASEAN and African countries. So again, this webinar is very important to formulate how you can contribute positively to take an action, start to deliver important message, to collaborate different country, to collaborate in every region. And we can, if we see, conflict was the primary driver of food crisis in 2021, even when we counting for economic effect of COVID-19. We can see conflict, insecurity hit 21 countries. The number of population or people affected is around 3.9 million people. In 2021, increase almost double, 139.1 million. If just only hit 24 countries, 2018 just only 21 countries, to 2020 become 24 countries. But the people affected by the conflict and insecurity increased double, from 73.9 million up to 139.1 million. How about weather extreme? It also hit 26 countries in 2018, but then in 2020 reduced just 8 countries. About economic shocks, we can also see the number of people affected. So if we combine conflict, climate, and economic shock, more than around 160 million people all over the world. But currently, due to conflict, war, it was predicted that almost 400 million people all around the world will be affected on food crisis. Then again, so when we real-time monitoring the early warning 2020 country vulnerability index, the index developed based on different indicator, exposure to Black Sea supply, because Russia and Ukraine have a conflict that Black Sea supply disrupt. It is not easy to export the important wheat that come from 2 countries. Actually, 2 countries use Russia and Ukraine held stock around 260 million wheat that needed by all over country in the world. And then second, food import dependency, macroeconomic vulnerability, fertilizer import dependency. When the gas cannot distribute effectively due to war, but the gas producers just only in some countries, it will affect fertilizer production, because the main sources of fertilizer is come from gas. Therefore, the input of production for the commodities will increase. So there is no doubt when I show you all the first slide showing that from 2020, the price commodity index increased drastically. This is because one factor related to the input cost of production getting higher. And then third one, local market dynamic. This is of course based on the availability, based on the accessibility, based on the production of each countries of the important food for the daily need of the people. And then we can see again, Ukraine-Russia war immediate have a big on food impact. Price were high and stock low prior to invasion. We can see maize, wheat, rice, particularly when we talk about wheat, we see the cereal price index, and then maize is also similar. Yeah, and we can see the share of Russia Federation and Ukraine in imported calories. Yeah. Next, and as I said that fertilizer is part of the important input for agriculture production. Due to the conflict, due to the constraint of flowing gas from the major country producers to other countries, then will have a big impact. Yeah, we can see the trend created by weight, the more dark color, meaning that nutrient accreted by weight is low. See, again, the war in Ukraine has led a cost of living crisis. This is a vicious cycle are emerging. Food price index, as I showed you previously, oil is at a record level. The price in Europe, a month ago, I traveled to 3 countries in a European zone. So the transportation getting, stuck, particularly in the airport. There's no ready. After the pandemic, many people would like to go abroad, and there's not enough worker to handle the logistic. Yeah, then everything getting bit of chaos. And then cost for maritime trade costs are nearly 3 times the pre-pandemic average. And interest rate, we see European country zone, the inflation is above 8%. Indonesia is still lucky. I will tell you later on in my next slide. Yeah. So this is why price increase, food price increase. And another vicious cycle may trigger social and political unrest because cost of living increase, real income decrease, ability to cope family, particularly the poor families, decrease, living standard decrease, country fiscal space to cope all the global shock. They don't have enough capacity, they don't have enough capability to cover all the increasing of price, to assure that the welfare people do not getting less and less. And then we need also social protection and safety net. So again, this organization AAYG is very important to discuss, to think, and then to come up with the brilliant idea how we can reduce the potential social and political unrest because of the 3C: climate change, the COVID, and then conflict. This is food inflation all around the world. Yeah, food inflation heat map, and then this is real food inflation heat map. The blue color, the inflation of food is above 30%. Yeah, the red one is around 5 to 3%. Almost country experience the food inflation above 5%. The red one, you can see. Yeah, the red one. So the main inflation come to the volatility of food price. So therefore, there is just only very few country all around the world, which is the color green. Yeah, maybe this is China and this is Australia. Yeah, volatility in price warning. It is also very important to be noted. 265 days in high volatility for hard wheat. For soft wheat, 252 days in high volatility. Cotton, 294 high price volatility. as well as soy. Rice just only 40 days in low volatility, very low volatility. The red one meaning that the price experienced in a high volatility of those price. Okay, now again we see the different country food and fuel as percentage of consumer price index. Yeah, the blue one is food and non-alcohol beverage. Like for example, in India, is almost more than 40%. Thailand around 40%. The Philippines slightly almost 40%, and then Malaysia, Indonesia, and other countries. Yeah, electricity and fuel, we see. Yeah, Indonesia. Okay, I think this one. Yeah. How about policies against food and fuel price inflation? Those countries have their own policy. We can compare, like for example, we can categorize into 3 different important policy of market intervention, fiscal policy, and monetary policy. For market intervention, there are some countries like food protection, also price control. In Indonesia, it's actually combined between market intervention and price control, particularly for rice. Fiscal policy, Indonesia Indonesia has a budget allocation for fertilizer subsidy as well as full fuel subsidy. Indonesia, I think 2 days ago, all of you also follow the news that on the key 2 of Indonesian development growing above 5%, meaning that economic Indonesia is recovery after the pandemic, but then we have also enough fiscal budget, national budget to protect, to cover from the global shock. You can imagine if there is no full subsidy, how much logistic, transportation, and other commodities will increase drastically. So Indonesia is and still can manage better compared to other countries where there is no fuel subsidy. Yeah. So monetary policy, central bank itself still keep maintain on a low interest rate regime. Yeah. We still keep certain 3-point-something% of interest rate should pay the central bank. We can see the other country, the inflation high, US 9%, yeah, highest after 40 years. There's no experience after 40 years, yeah, and then interest high. So that's why the central government maybe in the near future will increase and adjust the interest rate to make the inflation slow down. Yeah, this is different policy response from different countries related to food and food price inflation. Again, Indonesia is still be a strong country to recover their economy after pandemic because we have enough fiscal national budget to cover social safety net, to subsidy as well as fertilizer subsidy. But we have to be careful that subsidy has to be targeted into a certain category of people and groups. And this is the inflation rate in Indonesia. The contribution of food inflation is higher compared to non-food and general inflation. Again, we still thanks to the government, be able to manage monetary and fiscal policy better because we have enough revenue, we have enough income from tax revenue, and the Ministry of Finance together with the central bank can work hand in hand to stabilize the economy and then to recover our economy better compared to other countries. And inflation rate by the expenditure, we can see food and beverage is the highest compared to other sectors, transportation, and then household equipment and routine maintenance. Food inflation is around 9.4%, but the consumer price index year on year is 4.9%. This is the picture. Yeah, the picture in different region in Asia. The highest was in last July in one of the province in Sumatra, but all like in Jakarta and then in East Java, West Java, East Java is still a green one. The rate is around 3 up to 5%. And this is food inflation again. Yeah. Now, this is very important, as the Secretary General noted. In many countries, still facing poverty. Different global shock has a different characteristic and will have an impact differently. Yeah. 1998 to 1999, the poverty incident getting high, because at that time Indonesia also experienced on the high inflation, high interest rate, and many people trapped into below poverty line. But then again, during the pandemic, it's also slightly increased, tend to decrease. So we really have to focus that the first group that we have to assist due to the 3C is the poor people. In Indonesia itself, government target have a target that 2024 there will be zero extreme poverty in nationwide. So again, how youth contribute the way how we can solve the poverty as well as unemployment in Indonesia. Yeah, this is just another experience. Yeah, I wrote a paper related to the mining factors of regional food resiliency in Java, Indonesia. But what I would like to share, the important indicator is the inflation. Yeah, just look at the model. Inflation has a significant effect on the resiliency in the country. Even the sample is in Java, because Java is the main producer of different commodities in Indonesia. So I took Java as a unit of analysis. And then poverty. Yeah, it is very important to keep maintain inflation on the stable number. Yeah, central bank have inflation targeting. So how all stakeholders, how government in the region work together, local government, provincial government, if there is another supply of commodity should be delivered to other country, then we also have to think about the transportation and logistics, because if we see the road line proxide by asphalt road also have a significant impact on the food security, on the food resilience. So this just a model to show the important government policy, yeah, to keep maintain inflation stable, and then to push the infrastructure to make flowing of the commodities, food and other important commodities from one region to other region going smoothly. And poverty is also important. I think that's all my presentation. Thank you. I'm very sorry if my presentation over as what the committee suggested, just 15 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Nunung. What a great explanation that was, Prof. If I may, to underline some point from what Professor Nunung was mentioning, initially Professor Nunung conveyed that share of agriculture sector in several countries decreasing from time to time. However, during the pandemic, it has increased. It is indeed, conflict is primary driver for food crisis, but not only food prices is rising, but also oil is rising, interest rates are rising, and country fiscal is going down. In terms of policy, several countries choose to intervene in the market using either food protectionism or price controls. Some countries also giving fertilizer and fuels subsidy. And then inflation rate that is happening in Indonesia mostly due to rising of food prices. And what the most important for us, I think, when he sent a message to us, particularly to the youth, that how youth can take an action and contribute and collaborate for tackling these issues together in every region. Once again, thank you, Professor Nunung, for joining this great discussion. Thank you so much, Prof. Maybe now I would like to go for Mr. Teguh Rifki from macroeconomic perspective. Good afternoon, Mr. Rifki. You
Good
there?
afternoon. How are you?
Yeah, fine, thanks. How are you, Mr. Rifki? Okay.
I'm good, thank you.
So, Mr. Rifki, we all might at least read the news about how we're now facing the high inflation, and all countries, including US, UK, and other advanced countries, facing such a thing. Thus, their central bank, as Professor Nunung was mentioning, has issued higher interest rates of their policy. So due to this central bank movement, are we going to face some recession again in the near future? And what's our macroeconomics perspective in the midst of happening geopolitical issues right now? So Mr. Teguh Rifki, the floor is all yours.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Amri, for your kind introduction. I would like to thank all the participants who have allocated their time to be in this seminar, and I would like to thank you, the AYG committee, that has been inviting me to this discussion. This is a very important topic, and I would like to extend my gratitude to Mr. Muhammad Mahyudin Mahi as the General Secretary of AYG, and I would like to say hello to Professor Nunung Nuriartondo as a fellow speaker on this discussion. Salam kenal, Prof. Nunung. Very nice to meet you in this discussion. I've learned a lot from your presentation just before, and I would like to start my presentation just to add a few things on what Professor Nunung has just mentioned before. Like Professor Nunung has delivered before, we are in a very difficult times, especially in the context of not only economic perspective, but also humanitarian perspective, as we see not only the current economic crisis is going, but also the kind of trigger in this crisis, especially in the food and energy price crisis, means that we are facing humanitarian issues, especially hunger and poverty. And I would like to deliver a few points on the global context and macroeconomic perspective on what Professor Nunung have just said before. Next, please. Okay, the main theme of the current issues is that we are not only facing inflation, but the issues of the slowing down of the economic activity means that we are facing the recession as well. And the combination of inflation and recession means that we are in a very difficult position. There is stagflation. And historically, stagflation has been the condition in which economy is very hard to address. Next. So the first part of the stagflation is the inflation, in which that Professor Nunung have explained very thoroughly and very comprehensively about the rising prices of many commodity aspects. And I would like to just highlight a few points from the energy prices and the food prices. And in that, we have seen that the rising price of oil and gas prices has bring cataclysm on the global economic setting. This has been exacerbated by the rising food prices, as Professor Nuno has mentioned before, mainly triggered by the conflict of Russia and Ukraine. And this condition has manifested into the slowing down of manufacturing activity, or in other words, the slowing down of production activity, in which if we are seeing the global PMI, or this is a proxy of production activity on the global level, that we are seeing the slowdown of production economic activity. And the current record is hitting its lowest level since August 2020. And that means that we are facing a very difficult supply chain chaos, in which the energy and food commodity prices have climbed up, but the supply is very limited currently. So we are not only facing the issue of prices itself, but we are also facing the issue of quantity. Next. Okay, well, in response to that, many central banks across the world have increased their policy rate. So they have risen their interest rate in order to manage the inflation. But this might not be the best policy in terms of economic welfare, because when the government try to control the price, or try to cool down the inflation by raising the interest rate, the government is actually introducing the slowdown of economic activity. So try to imagine the inflation or rising price as the overheating machine, in which the mechanic has to cool down the machine itself. Or in other words, the government has to some extent, slow down the economic activity to bring down the interest rate. So either way, we are seeing the condition, which is very puzzling. On the one hand, we could see a rising inflation, but on the other hand, in order to bring down the inflation, we have to induce some degree of economic slowdown. And if it's too much, then we are heading towards the risk of recession, which might lead to rising unemployment, rising poverty, and so on. So we are actually in a very difficult position on the global context, in which not only developed countries, but also developing countries are facing a similar problem with a various magnitude. Next. Okay, so when we are seeing this chart on the left hand side of your screen, we are seeing many countries, especially global superpower such as United States, United Kingdom, Germany, and Japan. They are seeing the rising rate of inflation, which at the same time they are also facing a slowing down of economic growth. So this is a very clear indicator that many countries are heading towards stagflation. So not only normal recession, but recession with the high degree of inflation, in which this is to some extent has been confirmed by global institutions such as World Bank, that has slashed down the global growth forecast to only 2.9% in 2022 from 5.7% in 2021. This is lower than the previous estimate of 4.1%. Similarly, IMF also cut down its global growth forecast to 3.2%, which is also lower than the previous estimate. And it has also been mentioned before that inflation in the US has reached 9.1%, the highest in the last 40 years. And also the unemployment level is rising as well, hitting 8-month high. So the complexity of the current situation that we are facing due to the escalation of geopolitical tension between Russia and Ukraine has been manifested very, very badly across the globe. Next. Okay, but let's now looking inward at the domestic condition. So in the domestic context, when we are seeing the profile of Indonesian import, we can see that almost or even more than 90% of Indonesian import goods are actually capital goods and raw materials, meaning that more than 90% of Indonesian import is related to the production activity domestically. And when we have rising import prices, as indicated by the left-hand side chart, we are seeing the increase of the production cost domestically. That manifested into the rising inflation figure that we have been seeing quite currently. And despite we are still on a benign level of inflation, which is the last time recorded, it's 4.94% in July, it is still beyond the Bank Indonesia's target range of 2 until 4%, and it means that currently we are missing the inflation target by the central bank. So that means that we are seeing rising inflation pressure domestically, although it is still relatively in a much better shape compared to the other countries. Next. Okay, so this is the kind of inflation that we are actually facing. So there are two kind of price index seen by the economic agent. First is the producer price index or PPI, and consumer price index or CPI. And the current inflation figure that released by Bureau of Statistics is the CPI, consumer price index. But the level of inflation that has been faced by the consumer and the producer is quite different, in which we are seeing the inflation rate by the consumer is 5%. So that if you're a consumer, that you are seeing the rising price level, you only get a rising price level of around 5%. But if you're a producer, then your cost of production is getting more expensive by almost 12%. It means that the producer in Indonesia are seeing a more narrowing gap of profit margin. They are sacrificing their profit in order to fulfill the demand in the market. And it's not really sustainable, because when we are talking about the profit margin, it means that the producer are facing a hard time, because they are decreasing their profit such that they could sell their products. But this is not sustainable, and partly it is because the price level on the consumer side is heavily subsidized by government. But sooner or later, we are going to see a spiking price on the consumer level once the producer cannot hold longer the rising cost of production activity. So despite we are seeing a relatively low inflation compared to other countries, the risk of inflation going forward is still persistent. Next. Also, when we are talking about the rising price index, we're not only talking about the price itself. We're also seeing the aspect of depreciation, because we are seeing the capital outflow going massively in the last couple of months, and it has been reflected from the yield spread of the government bonds of Indonesia. And the securities of the ownership of foreign investor has also been decreasing in the last couple of periods. Means that we have been experiencing a massive capital outflow that leads into a depreciation of rupiah. If you might have already heard that in the last couple of weeks, we have reached the level of rupiah almost 50,000, and sometimes it has even goes beyond that. So it means that the volatility of the currency means that we are getting a more expensive imported product, and that will be translated into higher domestic prices. Because remember, I've just shown you before that 90% of our import is related to the production activity in the domestic sector. So it means that the cost of production will also be rising as well. Next. Okay, we have been talking quite a lot about the inflation and the price level. But when we are talking about the economic growth, it is rather giving us quite positive perspective. Because when we're talking about several indicators, such as CIC leading indicators, consumer confidence index, and retail sales index, it has been increasing for quite some times, meaning that the domestic economy from the consumer perspective is still robust. We are still seeing a quite resilient demand from domestic economy. It might be due to we are still on the early stage of the recovery, but it also means that we are not seeing any potential recession in the near future, at least. Because when we are seeing many countries that has been faced with slowing down economic growth, we are seeing quite a robust domestic economic growth. Even during the first half of 2022, we recorded the GDP growth of above 5% for the first and the second quarter in 2022. Next. Okay, same goes with the production activity, in which although we are seeing the inflation on the cost of production activity, the production activity itself is still increasing by many indicators. If we are seeing the PMI manufacturing, the capacity utilization of manufacturing production, and demand for new loans is still increasing in the last few months, meaning that the domestic economic activity, both from consumption activity and production activity, is still growing quite rapidly. So it means that it's a strong indicative that we are not gonna see any economic slowdown or even recession. But our main problem is on the inflation side. So when we're talking about whether Indonesia is going towards a stagflation period, I would say we are not going into stagflation, because despite we are having a high level of inflation, we are not seeing any sign of economic slowdown. So it's a good sign, because many countries around the world, both developed and developing countries, are in a serious risk of going towards stagflation. Next. Okay, so but that doesn't mean that we are actually in a very stable position. Going forward, I think it is very important for the government, both from the Minister of Finance and Bank Indonesia, to work hand in hand to ensure that the issue of inflation, the rising issue of inflation, is manageable for this year and next year. Because the failure to do so could cause us a substantial decline in purchasing power and risking the recession and poverty and hunger domestically. So our issue is that now we have to make the inflation quite manageable, because we are seeing the rising tension of inflation for quite some times. And in addition, that managing the stability of currency also equally important to managing the price stability of domestic market. And I would put an end to my presentation now. Apologize if I exceed my time limit. Thank you, and I will give the floor back to the moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Rifki, for brilliant and insightful explanation. So maybe if I may to convey a short summary from what you were mentioning, is the economics prospect is hard to predict indeed. And due to inflation, the major central bank had no other option than to be in their aggressive stance. And the Eurozone is hugely exposed to the negative spillover as Russian-Ukraine conflict. And the PPI higher than CPI actually means that producer charge price in lower margin profit. In this recovery stage, from Indonesia perspective, domestic demand starting to rise. Yet, and it is indeed a great prospect and a good sign for economic prospectivity for Indonesia. Again, Indonesia is still on the stable position, yet it's important for Ministry of Finance and Bank Indonesia to work hand in hand to ensure the rise of inflation is gradual and manageable. Thank you again, Mr. Rifki, for joining this great discussion. Good afternoon, Mr. Now, I would like to move to policymakers' perspective. Your Excellency, Pak Rifki Nizami. Selamat sore, Pak. Halo, Pak Rifki Karsayuda. Are you there? Langsung, but is not audible. Halo, Pak Rifki Karsayuda. Oh, katanya Pak Rifki sedang siap-siap dulu. Waalaikumsalam, Sahrial Fazri. Siap, terima kasih untuk Sahrial Fazri sudah hadir dan menyimak. Okay, maybe for waiting Pak Rifki Nizami, Is there any question yet? Maybe for Professor Nuno, either Professor Nuno or Mr. Rifki. So perhaps we may now go for opening Q&A session first. So if you may have a question to all or any particular speaker, either Professor Nuno or Mr. Teguh Rifki, please feel free to ask, whether pressing hand and speaking directly or writing down via chat Zoom. Oh, please, Intania Putri Mardiani. Do you prefer?
Thank you.
Okay, please.
Okay, thank you moderator. Sebelumnya perkenalan dulu kayak my name is Okay, sorry. My name is Intania, and I have a question for Kak. Aku manggil Kakak aja ya. Kak Teguh Rifki. Okay. What can we do to minimize the economic crisis that occurred in Indonesia, especially by inviting several youth organization? Karena di Indonesia kan there are so many organization yang mana banyak banget pemuda di sana yang aspirasinya mungkin agak kurang didengar ya Kak, karena kan beberapa anak muda disepelekan karena dianggap tidak dapat berperan gitu. Mungkin dari Kak Teguh bisa kasih beberapa tips untuk kita para youth organization. Thank you sebelumnya Kak.
Thank you. The question from Intania for Mr. Teguh Rifki. You there?
Okay, should I just answer it directly?
Please.
Okay. So should I answer it in English or Indonesia, Mr. Moderator?
Feel free.
Okay. Saya coba jawab pertanyaannya dalam bahasa Indonesia ya, karena kebetulan pertanyaannya dalam bahasa Indonesia. Jadi sejauh yang saya pahami, memang cukup tricky untuk kemudian generasi muda ini bisa berkontribusi terhadap kondisi perekonomian saat ini. Ada beberapa channel yang memang bisa dieksplor, tapi saya rasa yang paling impactful adalah kemudian youth generation ini pertama harus memahami dulu isunya apa gitu. Kita sudah sering lihat di berbagai kondisi ini banyak sekali masukan dan feedback terhadap policy atau kebijakan yang diambil pemerintah gitu, dan banyak yang memang sesuai dengan kondisi yang kita hadapi saat ini, banyak juga yang memang tepat sasaran komennya, tapi juga tidak sedikit komen yang memang tidak relevan dengan apa yang kita hadapi saat ini gitu. Jadi pertama saya rasa yang perlu dilakukan agar kemudian suara dari youth ini bisa impactful adalah mengerti dulu problemnya apa. Lalu kemudian setelah mengerti problemnya apa, ini dikritisi kebijakan pemerintah. Ada beberapa contoh, misalnya kebijakan pemerintah ini yang dapat youth ini kemudian kritisi. Misalnya contoh, kalau ini kemudian kita bicara dalam konteks global food crisis, ini kita bicara salah satu isunya itu adalah inflasi. Nah, saat kita bicara inflasi, ini kemudian pemerintah sudah melakukan beberapa respons kebijakan untuk menahan laju inflasi. Salah satunya itu tadi sudah disampaikan oleh Profesor Nunung, pemerintah melakukan berbagai macam kebijakan subsidi, subsidi pupuk misalnya, lalu kemudian subsidi BBM. Pemerintah juga kemudian menambah jaring pengaman sosial dari program-program bansos dan perlinsos. Nah, ini perlu diperhatikan satu-satu, mana kemudian kebijakan-kebijakan pemerintah yang tepat sasaran, mana yang kebijakan tidak tepat sasaran. Ini salah satu contoh adalah kebijakan yang juga sudah banyak di-highlight oleh berbagai macam studi adalah subsidi BBM, di mana subsidi BBM harusnya ditujukan untuk melindungi daya beli masyarakat miskin dan rentan, tapi sebagian besar ini yang menikmati masyarakat menengah ke atas. Nah, ini kalangan muda perlu mengkritisi gitu, sehingga kenapa kemudian postur fiskal kita ini di saat kondisi inflasi dan daya beli masyarakat sedang tertekan, ini kemudian yang ditolong itu adalah masyarakat menengah ke atas. Nah, dengan memiliki framework pemahaman isu yang betul-betul tepat sasaran, ini saya rasa akan satu konstruktif, kedua juga pemerintah akan lebih dengar gitu, karena memang seringkali saya misalnya berinteraksi baik dari misalnya kalangan peneliti, lalu juga beberapa kali saya berdiskusi dengan kalangan pemerintah, itu sering nggak ketemu titik tengahnya adalah karena yang dikeluhkan atau aspirasi yang disampaikan itu isunya tidak tepat gitu, sehingga kemudian banyak sekali menghabiskan diskursus hanya pada sampai ke kondisi yang tepat gitu, atau berada dalam satu pemahaman yang sama gitu. Jadi ini yang saya rasa perlu dipahami dulu oleh youth. Bahwa isu yang dikritisi itu memang betul-betul relevan dan tepat sasaran, baru kemudian disampaikan ke pemerintah dengan berbagai macam media dan platform yang dimiliki gitu. Karena ini juga tidak sedikit studi yang menunjukkan bahwa kemudian suatu negara ini bisa going forward kalau kemudian pemerintahnya ini memiliki correction mechanism dari society-nya gitu. Jadi kemudian saat pemerintah mengambil berbagai macam kebijakan tanpa ada correction mechanism yang efektif dari masyarakatnya, ini juga tidak maju-maju kebijakannya gitu. Jadi mungkin itu ya salah satu jawaban yang bisa saya coba deliver dari pertanyaan tersebut. Tentu kalau kita mau ke detailnya pasti akan banyak lagi gitu. Tapi saya rasa itu salah satu langkah yang cukup realistik untuk bisa youth lakukan dalam kondisi saat ini.
Thank you, Kak, for your answer.
Terima kasih Mas Teguh. Berarti tadi sudah cukup menjawab atau mungkin masih ada yang perlu ditanyakan lagi pada Pak Teguh?
Sudah dari saya.
Oke, terima kasih Tania dan Pak Teguh. Mungkin kita ada pertanyaan dari partisipan Ilong Ababis. Mohon koreksi kalau salah penyampaian mengucapkan namanya. Good afternoon, my name is Michelle, Ilong Ababis from Kupang City, di Nusa Tenggara. Maybe pertanyaan dari Syekh Azri. Dan maaf sebelumnya saya bertanya mengenai krisis multidimensi dalam berbagai aspek kehidupan dewasa ini, sejauh mana kita terlalu representasi yang menyeluruh ke tingkat bawah. Mungkin ini pertanyaan untuk Bapak anggota DPR. Untuk Pak Rifki Karsayuda, apakah sudah bisa join dengan kami, Pak?
Harusnya pakai HP dari tadi, pakai laptop. Harusnya pakai laptop dari tadi.
Selamat sore Pak Rifki.
Ya, selamat sore.
Ya. Selamat sore Pak.
Sore
Mudah
ini
berkenalan dan Pak Arif.
HP-nya nggak jelas nih. Bentar. HP-nya susah banget, nggak bisa dia nyari nggak bisa.
Oke, apakah sudah bisa bergabung dengan stabil Pak?
Halo, sorry.
Oh ya,
Ya, halo. Ya,
halo Pak Rifki, selamat sore Pak. Senang
sore.
bisa ketemu dan berkenalan. Ya, mungkin so I would like to move to policymakers perspective kepada yang terhormat Pak Rifki, Pak Rifki Karsayuda, Pak Rifki Nizami Karsayuda sebagai salah satu anggota DPR dari Komisi 2, yang salah satunya membahas masalah tanah dan reformasi agraria. Nah, mungkin tadi ada pertanyaan juga nih Pak dari Syahrial Fazri. Katanya, saya izin bertanya, mohon maaf sebelumnya, saya izin bertanya, mengenai krisis multidimensi dalam berbagai aspek kehidupan di masa ini, sudah sejauh mana upaya keseriusan pemerintah terhadap implementasi yang menyeluruh ke tingkat bawah. Ini tadi karena dengan pertanyaan sebelumnya ke Pak, pertanyaan untuk Pak Rifki sebagai pembuat kebijakan.
Oke, saya respon ya. Baik, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak Ibu sekalian, ini dalam bahasa Indonesia ya?
Ya, boleh Pak. Tadi pertanyaannya bahasa Indonesia.
Oke. Bapak Ibu sekalian yang saya hormati, pertama saya mohon maaf karena baru bisa bergabung karena di jadwal yang sama tadi saya bersama dengan Badan Pembinaan Ideologi Pancasila Republik Indonesia (BPIP). Kami menyelenggarakan kegiatan di Kalimantan Selatan ini dengan multi stakeholders. Saya agak tentu ahistoris karena saya masuk di akhir mungkin dari sesi ini. Kalau kita bicara soal tema pada kesempatan hari ini, tentu sebetulnya kan kita ini menurunkan dari goals kedua dari SDGs ya, tentang zero hunger and hunger, achieve food security and improve nutrition and promote sustainable agriculture ya. Yang kemudian tentu di dalam berbagai macam kerangka peraturan perundang-undangan, terutama undang-undang tentang APBN, hal itu tentu sudah dilakukan oleh pemerintah bersama dengan DPR RI. Nah, problem utama kita saat ini adalah APBN kita sedang mengalami bleeding atau pendarahan keuangan negara yang tidak kecil. Kita punya keuangan negara ini dananya sekitar 2.600 triliun yang kemudian hampir 700-800 triliun untuk membayar hutang. Sisanya sekitar 1.800 triliun. Itu 60% untuk membayar gaji pegawai negeri sipil, aparatur sipil negara yang lain, termasuk TNI Polri, dan sisanya adalah untuk kegiatan pembangunan, baik itu yang didistribusikan kepada kementerian lembaga di tingkat nasional, maupun kemudian didistribusikan menjadi dana transfer daerah kepada provinsi, kabupaten, kota. Sehingga kemudian kalau kita bicara berbagai macam isu termasuk terkait dengan isu ketahanan pangan, bagaimana sustainable energy, sustainable environment, dan seterusnya, itu saat ini tidak bisa 100% mengandalkan terhadap kebijakan dan keuangan negara. Kita memerlukan satu gotong royong sebagai sebuah bangsa untuk menyelesaikan persoalan-persoalan ini. Dan kata kunci yang terakhir terkait dengan gotong royong sebagai sebuah bangsa, itu memang masih menjadi problem kita bersama. Karena hampir semua tema terkait dengan pembangunan itu masih menitik beratkan pada penyelesaian yang dilakukan oleh negara, dalam hal ini adalah pemerintah. Keterlibatan partisipasi publik, stakeholders lain dari negara itu belum menjadi concern kita semua. Termasuk soal tadi reformasi agraria dan seterusnya dan seterusnya. Saya kurang mengerti soal pertanyaan tadi karena tentu tidak yang bersangkutan langsung bertanya, tetapi prinsip-prinsip dasarnya kira-kira itu yang bisa saya sampaikan. Mestinya kita punya beberapa opportunity untuk kita membangun kolaborasi itu ke depan. Bangsa ini adalah bangsa yang terlatih untuk melakukan gotong royong dalam semua bidang, dan karenanya tentu implementasi dari gotong royong itu menjadi penting untuk kita lakukan dalam tema yang kita bicarakan pada kesempatan sore ini. Saya kira demikian. Terima kasih.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Mas Sudiat. Oke, sebelum masuk ke materi utama, kepada Pak Sahrial puas dengan jawabannya atau ada follow up lagi mungkin? Baik, oke, mungkin kita sekarang ke materi utama yang disampaikan oleh Pak Rifki. So, mungkin kita sekarang switch to full English ya. Um, so, as one of the member of Commission 2 of House of Representatives in which of one of them is to manage land and spatial planning matter. So, what policy that has been done or issued by DPR regarding some agrarian reform atau reformasi agraris, and how far has this reform work food security in Indonesia? So, Your Excellency, the floor is. Pada Pak Rifki. Sebenarnya ada masalah lagi. So apparently, Mr. Muhammad, Excellency Muhammad Nizami, currently having a trouble connections issue and trying to do link. Okay, maybe we can session. If there's any, you can either raising your hand or chatting in the Zoom chat. So any question again from all of the participants? Oke, ada pertanyaan dari Pak Ilong Babis. Sebenarnya pertanyaannya untuk Pak Rifki Nizami. Pak Rifki Nizami, apakah dapat terhubung kembali? Atau apakah pertanyaannya dispesifikkan untuk Izami atau untuk dua speaker? Mungkin kita alihkan ke dua speaker saja pertanyaannya. Dari Pak Ilong, selamat sore Pak Moderator juga Pak Kami. Perkenalkan, saya Ilong Ababis dari Kota Kupang, Nusa Tenggara Timur. Masih bertanya Pak, dengan global yang terjadi saat ini dan kemungkinan juga berlanjut di masa adalah semakin berkurangnya luasan lahan tersedia, semakin menurunnya ketersediaan dan kualitas air untuk kegiatan produksi pangan, dan semakin sulit memprediksi, apalagi mengendalikan dinamika perubahan iklim. Faktor-faktor ini akan menjadi kendala dalam upaya meningkatkan produksi pangan. Di sisi lain, pertumbuhan penduduk yang terus berlanjut, terutama di negara-negara berkembang, dan peningkatan pendapatan per kapita, terutama di negara-negara maju, akan menyebabkan meningkatan kebutuhan pangan dan meningkatnya kebutuhan untuk jaminan keamanan pangan. Pemenuhan kebutuhan ini akan menjadi target dalam proses produksi pangan. Pertanyaannya, ada bagaimana kebijakan atau langkah yang diambil oleh pemerintah? Mungkin pertanyaan ini boleh dijawab oleh Prof. Nunung
Ya.
Dan Pak Teguh.
Ya.
Jadi mungkin lebih ke
Ya.
Apa yang seharusnya pemerintah lakukan menanggapi hal tersebut.
Ya,
Mungkin
bisa saya
Prof.
langsung respon ya, singkat ya.
Ya.
Terima kasih pertanyaan. Tadi di awal saya jelaskan, tahun lalu itu ada event besar di UN, Food System Summit, ya, yang kemudian itu bulan September, tapi prosesnya sangat panjang. Dan Indonesia memiliki komitmen yang luar biasa, karena saya kebetulan sebagai National Curator ya, National Curator yang kemudian kita menyusun dokumen Food System Transformation di Indonesia, pathway-nya seperti apa. Jadi, kalau kita bicara bagaimana proses transformasi sistem pangan, ada kata kunci yang penting, sustainability, resiliency, inklusif, dan regionalisasi. Jadi, ketahanan atau food, kedaulatan pangan, itu menjadi hal yang sangat penting, apalagi kita punya pengalaman yang luar biasa. Pandemi, kalau ketahanan pangan kita lemah, kolaps. Karena kesehatan itu harus diikuti dengan kemampuan daya tahan tubuh yang baik. Dan itu tentu dari sumber asupan pangan, selain faktor yang lain. Ya, jadi pemerintah Indonesia sudah ada itu dokumennya. Pak Ilong bisa masuk ke UNFSS di webnya, unduh dan ambil dokumen terkait dengan food system transformation di Indonesia. Proses dialognya panjang, melibatkan banyak stakeholders, dan juga melibatkan pemerintah dari tingkat lokal sampai kepada pusat. Baru-baru ini, kebetulan saya menjadi tim juga, ada rencana aksi daerah berkaitan dengan gizi dan pangan dan pertanian. Ya, jadi konteks ekonominya sangat luas sekali. Nah, oleh karenanya, ya, sebenarnya sederhana kan, kalau kita meningkatkan produksi itu, apakah kita mau intensifikasi, mau ekstensifikasi, atau diversifikasi. Intensifikasi upaya untuk meningkatkan produktivitas, kita pakai teknologi. Ya, dengan teknologi precision farming dan seterusnya, itu akan mampu meningkatkan kekurangan meningkatkan kurangan dari teknologi konvensional. Tapi saya ingin berpesan, Mas Muhammad Amria, menyambung dari pertanyaan sebelumnya, youth itu bisa sangat berperan. We can do starting from ourselves. Apa? Think daily you go to the restaurant. Think whether you eat all food that served by the restaurant atau food loss and waste. Coba kita anak muda itu bisa sangat bisa berkontribusi dalam konteks food loss and waste. Kadang kita nggak merasa makan buang, gitu kan? Padahal kalau waste itu dari penelitian yang dilakukan oleh Bappenas, ya, setahunnya itu triliunan kalau di-value-kan dari food loss and food waste itu. Berarti ada resources yang terbuang. Ya, food loss itu sekitar 12% dari produksi sampai ke pasca panen. 12% kalau itu bisa ditekan, berarti apa? Ada tambahan produksi 12%. Dan itu cukup. Nah, itu mulai bisa disuarakan bareng-bareng. Youth in the region of Asian and African countries start doing to reduce food loss and food waste. Selain tadi yang saya sampaikan, diversifikasi menjadi bagian yang penting. Oleh karenanya di dalam pathway-nya food system transformation Indonesia ada yang disebut regionalisasi. Jadi we accommodate, we promote local food, gitu ya. Nah ini penting banget. Gitu. Kira-kira singkatnya itulah, Mas Amri. Ya.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih. Untuk Pak Ilong sudah menjawab pada pertanyaannya. Mungkin ada yang mau ditanyakan lagi kepada Prof. Nunung sebelum masuk ke pendapat Pak Teguh. Oke, baik. Mungkin tadi dari perspektif Prof. Nunung, terima kasih Prof atas jawabannya. Mungkin kita ke Pak Teguh Rifki. Mungkin punya perspektif lain soal itu, Pak, barangkali.
Oke, saya nggak ada tambahan ya. Tadi Prof. Nunung sudah menyampaikan sangat jelas dan sangat komprehensif terkait isu food security dan production ini, gitu. Tapi mungkin beberapa hal yang ingin saya tambahkan sedikit, kalau bisa itu adalah mungkin dalam konteks beyond nasional, gitu, di mana memang saat ini food security ini sulit terjalani, gitu, apalagi di kondisi saat harga-harga pangan sedang tinggi-tingginya saat ini, itu karena mulai muncul isu proteksionisme, gitu, di mana saat harga-harga pangan dan komoditas makin mahal, ini kemudian banyak negara yang mulai memberlakukan trade barrier, gitu, sehingga kemudian walaupun suplai domestik ini cukup di beberapa negara produsen atau net eksportir, kita melihat peningkatan kekurangan suplai bahan-bahan makanan di berbagai negara, misalnya seperti Afrika, Latin Amerika, yang ini memang karena adanya trade practices yang mengarah ke proteksionisme, gitu. Jadi ini memang perlu ada koordinasi di level beyond national level, di level multilateral, bahwa trade barriers ini perlu di-solve, gitu. Memang sejauh ini banyak juga yang mengeluhkan bahwa fungsi dispute settlement di WTO ini cukup failing, sehingga kemudian ini kita perlu terus dorong agar food security ini paling tidak di jangka pendek dengan kondisi harga-harga komoditas sedang tinggi-tingginya saat ini bisa di-ensure terjadi, gitu. Karena memang kalau kita bicara jangka panjang tentu ada beberapa opsi lainnya yang bisa kita approach, seperti misalnya peningkatan produktivitas, lalu kemudian regionalisasi dan lain semacamnya. Tapi di jangka pendek ini memang perlu ada koordinasi yang lebih intensif di level beyond nasional. Mungkin itu yang bisa saya tambahkan terkait pertanyaan tersebut.
Oke, thank you Pak Teguh Rifki. Apakah ada yang bertanya lebih lanjut Pak Ilong ke Pak Rifki atau Pak Sudilas? Oke, sepertinya kalau tidak, terima kasih sekali lagi Pak Teguh Rifki atas jawabannya. Finally, we have ended up our discussion here. Again, it's such a interesting, brilliant, very insightful talk from all of the three speakers with Nun. And thanks so much to all the involved participant. I'm Muhammad Mustafa. Now I'm giving back this floor to our MC, Levina Kezia. To Levina Kezia, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you to Mr. Amri who guided the main event very well. Our next agenda will be delivering a certificate of appreciation for the speakers, which later will be followed by a photo session. Distinguished delegates, as a form of our gratitude to our speakers, we are going to give a certificate to each of our speakers as an appreciation for their willingness to share a lot of knowledge and insights in today's webinar. For the speakers, we are going to take pictures one by one first, then we will take pictures together with all the participants. For the operator, please pin the screen of our first speaker, Professor Dr. Nunung Nuryatono, and screenshot the screen.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Mr. Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile. 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, thank you, Professor Nunung Nuryatono. Next, please pin the screen of our second speaker, Mr. Tuku Rifki. Okay, 3, 2, 1, smile. Once again, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, thank you, Mr. Tuku Rifki.
Yeah, thank you.
Next, we will move on to our third speaker today, Mr. Muhammad Rifki Nizam Sukarsayuda. Since he has some connection issues, we will just screenshot the certificate. Okay, and last but not least, we are also going to give a certificate to our moderator, Mr. Amri, who has guided the main event very well. Okay, 3, 2, okay, wait. 3, 2, 1, smile. Once again, 3, 2, 1, smile. Okay, thank you, Mr. Muhammad Amri. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this marks the end of our webinar with the topic policy responses for the global food crisis, recession, and everything in between. We are sorry for any inconveniences that occur during the webinar. And representing all of the committee in charge, I would like to thank the speakers and of course to all participants who have attended this event until now. I hope this webinar can give you some insights and provide a new perspective for all of us regarding the problems that are currently happening in the world, especially about the global food crisis and also recession. I want to remind you all, for those of you who want to get engaged with more of our upcoming agenda, please visit our website www.aa-yg.org or our Facebook AAYG, or Twitter @AAYGofficial, or Instagram @asian.african.yg, or TikTok @asian.african.yg, and also our YouTube, Asian African Youth Government. Once again, thank you for your participation. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon.
The Tiger of Asia, the Lion of Africa.
This the board executive, Presiden Respiratory Sadam Al-Jihad, Indonesia.
I promise you, as President of Asian African Youth Government, I will do my very best as we, all of AAYG administrator, have a strong commitment to develop this organization. It will be pleasure to work with you. Unfortunately, it has been 67 years since the ASEAN African Conference in 1955. The principle of Dasa Sila Bandung, human rights, integrity, sovereignty, equality for all ethnics and nations, and the